What's the most interesting revelation you've had about the opposite X? Their pants don't have a waist size and leg length, just an arbitrary number. The UCK is a size 3. Edit. I had no idea a size 3 was tiny. It was the first number that popped into my head. It was decades ago, but until I lived with a woman I had no clue how expensive bras were. I honestly thought they were like underpants, maybe $10 for a 3-pack. Shirt buttons are on the other side? But why? Edit. Wow. Crazy response to this post. It's amazing how we all go about life with something so different and not really even noticed. They can withstand you lying on top of them. That guys don't talk about their ex-life with each other. I grew up watching all these movies where guys were in locker rooms describing their sexual encounters. So I thought all guys did this. I was surprised to find out that they hardly ever doubt this, and a lot don't want you discussing it at all with anyone. Edit. Thanks for the award. Also, my notifications are crying right now. Vaginas are farther down than I expected. I learned on Reddit that they don't stick those pad things to themselves exploding head, they stick it to their underwear. I guess it's obvious in hindsight. I think I was a teenager when I realized that my assumption 95% of women think they are beautiful was actually the inverse of reality. I have no idea why I thought that was the case, but I did. When I started understanding people's insecurities about their appearance, men included, it changed the way I interacted with them. Apparently women just want to vent and don't want you to fix their problems. Just listen to them and tell them you understand how it is frustrating. Edit. To people who keep commenting about the nail video, please read the comments first. 5 other people mentioned it already. As a dude, I grew my hair really long and the amount of hair I had to pull out of my ut while showering was shocking. Crazy that so many long-haired Ladyesha have been pulling hair out their uts most their lives. It's all fun and games until you put her favorite bra in the dryer, even accidentally. Nuts move all on their own. Like the skin flex and shifts and like crawls up and down twitching. I read it on Reddit, called Ullshit, and went and inspected the spouse, was very surprised. I learned it in the last few years. I'm not a young person. Women really want to be found interesting by someone who isn't trying to sell them something or get them into bed in the next few hours. That nothing stands the test of time in our relationship more than kindness. It can't be fake long term. It's literally the most important quality in a mate. I, 51-year-old M, have heard for a long time from women, friends and strangers writing op-eds, about the notion that hetero men think they want to partner with a strong woman. But they don't, actually. Many men want a fantasy version of a strong woman, someone who is strong when it's convenient, but who is still available to be what a man needs, wants her to be when he needs and wants it. And honestly, I think this dynamic is true in a lot of relationships I've observed. And, sadly, I've realized it's been true in some of my own, as I've learned and grown. However, there's a dynamic that goes the other way that I also think is common, and not much talked about. Hetero women think they want to partner with a man who can express his emotions and be vulnerable. But they don't, actually. Many women want a fantasy version of an expressive man, someone who expresses emotions and vulnerabilities that these women know how to handle, when it's convenient for them to be expressed. Many women are not really prepared for actual masculine vulnerability, which is often at odds with the fantasy of strong, supportive male partner who always has a shoulder available for crying on. Actual masculine vulnerability is often about how burdensome and tiring it can be to be that person. And many, not all, but many, hetero women find that threatening, in the same way that men are threatened by the actuality of feminine strength. I don't mean this in an accusatory way, but I think about it a lot, especially when I hear the growing sentiment these days, from op-eds and comedians and SNL skits, that men need more male friends. That may be true for some men, but I suspect these sentiments are also a byproduct of men actually trying to communicate with their partners in ways they thought they'd been encouraged to, only to find their partners resistant or even repulsed. TLDR. Gender roles are more powerful and restrictive than people suppose. Even those who try to break out of them. Minor edits for clarity. Later. Well, this blew up into a much bigger thing than I'd have ever guessed. Thanks for your comments, everyone. I'm leaving this as I wrote it, but I would stress that I don't mean all women and all men are like this, or that all relationships are subject to these dynamics. I do think a lot of hetero-American relationships are, and probably more than we realize, even when we're trying to be good and open and loving with one another. That's the TLDR I should have gone with. Later. You, Assault Commando, pointed out a couple of writers, thinkers who got to these points well before I put them together. I wanted to add them to the main comment in case anyone else stumbles across it, so no one thinks I'm trying to plant a flag in these ideas. The first is an article about Brené Brown, who talks about some of the dynamics I did. Ages of Shame are organized around gender, 275,322. The second is a book by Bell Hooks called The Will to Change, from decades ago. I've got it on order, but based on the preface, it's going to be, as perusal for hooks, pretty astounding. I had no idea she'd addressed a lot of these topics so long ago. I'm grateful to have them pointed out. I was 16/17 when I found out periods happen over time, not an instant gush of blood that comes out at some random point over a 1-week time period. I blame adverts for panty liners where they poured all the blue liquid out at once. Long-winded, bear with me. When I lived with male roommates and would clean the bathroom, yeah, everything was always covered in a thin sheer of beard hair, which, like whatever, price of admission of living with men. But the dust and hair around the base of the toilet was always immune to a broom, so I would have to get down and scrub, which again, NBD, you should be scrubbing your bathroom anyways. But then I moved in with my girlfriend, and just my girlfriend. I took my first bath, and my cat walked near the base of the toilet and I was like, buddy, no, I haven't mopped down there yet. And I looked. And it was a little dusty, but it didn't have that sticky gross dust. And I realized. It's his splatter. The dust is sticky and caked to the floor because of ISS splatter. I felt so stupid for not realizing until that moment, and also so grossed out for every time I personally scrubbed my roommates' off the floor. Edit. I am a girl. It wasn't my ISS. Took me a couple years of marriage to realize, but for women, crossing 2 to 3 things off their to-do list equals foreplay. Women just want lunch and dresses with pockets. I believe it was learning that girls, women actually desire X just like guys. For some reason, while growing up, many guys are under the impression they have to try to figure out how to get women to have X. Women get orny and masturbate too. The amount of hair they shed is astounding. My contribution is that women out of your league may not be looking for some Andrew Tate alpha Malou drinks bowl ISS and gets into fights. She may actually have a crush on you and be just as shido approach as you are. Imagine my shock when I was on a manic high and spoke to a woman I knew would never associate with my ass, and she was the exact type of person I was looking for, and I happened to be the exact type she was looking for. Next month will be 12 years of marriage. That they don't care much about our flaws like we think. Why did you get fired? A business I went to long ago was hiring and I got the job. Right after I signed all the paperwork, the department manager comes in and asks who I am. I tell him I was just hired as a temp. Manger Sachet never authorized any hiring and fired both me and my boss on the spot. I did not work for this company at all and they fired me. Sad face. I was denied a raise by HR after consistently working 60 to 70 hours weeks, and my VP, who had supported and requested the raise for me, told me to stop putting in the extra time, work my 40, and spend that extra time applying to new jobs. Within a month, a meeting was called to mutually part ways because my work wasn't getting done. I was gratified to learn that they had to hire 2 people to do my job after I left. Edit. Sucks to see how much this resonates with people who have been in a similar situation. I left this job back in 2015, thankfully. The VP is no longer there either, and good for him. I went to the emergency room instead of work. Came back with an note and they said, we won't be needing that. Can you come with us? I was 18 and it was my first full-time job. For doing my job too quickly and sitting down the rest of the time. Gas station cashier, 3rd shift. Me. Why should I stand when I'm the only person in the store? Manager. It's more professional to stand than sit. Me. Then why do you sit in your office? This isn't why I got fired, but this is why I didn't get a job. I was 16 and looking to work at a Dairy Queen as my first job. My mom drove me to the interview and I was super nervous. She looked me in the eye and said, just be honest and be yourself and you'll do fine. I walked into that interview and when he asked me, how long do you think you'll work here? I responded, until something better comes along. My manager kept losing my class schedule, worked at a Subway. I had class 2 days a week. Several times he put me on those days anyway. I gave him multiple copies every time. Owner took me off the schedule for calling out too much. When I showed the owner proof, he said it was too late and they already hired someone else. This was 12 years ago. I am still mad. His wife thought he was having an affair with the office manager. He asked me if I thought it was possible that he was having an affair with the office manager. I said, it's possible, but I don't think you are. I could see why your wife might think so too. I was 21 and naive as hell. Never should have said anything. I was an entitled little hit with a summer job between my junior and senior years in college. I thought I was getting a data entry job. It was indeed data entry to an extent, but most of the work was actually taking items off the shelves in a warehouse and taking pictures of them. The pictures would be scanned and then entered into a system with a description. I thought this was below somebody with my obvious skills as an engineering student who had failed to secure a summer internship in his field. I told my boss that the work was really a 2-person job. The other person could do the warehouse stuff, and she agreed and said she'd look into finding another intern to help. I took that to mean I could slack off posting on Warcraft 3 forums all day until they hired the other guy. One day I came home to a voicemail telling me Tonnet bother coming back. I 100% deserved it. I hate my younger self sometimes. I talked my way into a job at a software company when they put a hiring notice in a local paper. I had no idea what the software did. I still don't. They hired me as a trainer and no one ever explained what the product was. I did a few weeks where I was trained on the software, but literally none of it ever made sense to me. It was like they were speaking gibberish. One day I showed up, a lady I had never seen before gave me a check and walked me out to the parking lot. No one even ever said, "You're fired," or anything. It's one of the strangest things that ever happened to me. I refused to come in 15 to 20 minutes early unpaid for my shift. I was always 5 to 10 minutes early, but they decided they wanted me there earlier. I carried on as normal as I'm not coming in if I'm not being paid. Turned up for a 12 p.m. shift at 11:49. No one would look at me when I arrived, then was thrown in a meeting and fired for being late. Was out the door before it even hit 12. It was the only time I've ever been fired. I got fired once for putting in my 2-week notice. The only other time I've gotten fired was working for a trade company during the first week. I was a supervisor, and there was a second supervisor on site. I got a call that my wife had been rushed to hospital, which was literally less than a mile away. I asked the other supervisor if I could go to attend to her, and he said, "Sure, no problem. I've got things here. Go." I returned to the job site later to find the boss there, and he let me go on the spot for leaving the team without a supervisor. He knew what had happened and still fired me. I won't lie, that one kind of pissed me off. For reporting elder abuse.